You're inside the Progressive Talk Zone with House of Public Discourse founder and host, Johnny Hill.
Gravitas, gravitas, gravitas. Do we not live in a time of deep seriousness? There are no words to describe the gravity of the time. On many fronts, there is much at stake. How we proceed will have an impact on the lives to follow us. We owe it to them to care. Now more than ever, our choice of public office holder matters. We must proceed with gravitas. It might hurt your ears to hear this, folks, but politics matters. And today in the Progressive Talk Zone, we're going to be talking some politics. The politics of educated elitists have helped sway the tide long enough. Whether the dike is rebuilt or not, a flood of populism from each side of the political divide may threaten to overwhelm it, if not already. If we are to change our system of things, we must become active. At no point do we, as independent, progressive-minded people, have an opportunity to change the course. When all the barometers suggest stormy weather, we must be the riders on the storm. It has been too many times that compromise has been ridden, and the consequences are so evident. There is hope on the horizons, however. The number of young, progressive-minded activists running for public office is on the rise. At the House of Public Discourse, we applaud their leadership and their courage. A generation of warriors from many backgrounds is coming of age at just the right time. It couldn't be more timely. Certainly, it can't come soon enough. We all have a chance right now, not tomorrow, right now, to stem this feudalistic monopoly oligarch we have for so long suffered. These new age progressives are battening down the hatches and are the true riders of the storm, and they must do so with gravitas. As progressives, we have a chance to explore uncharted waters, succeeding at all levels of government in all parts of the country. While this is a daunting and exciting task, the tide is swiftly changing favorably, politically, and we can and should seize this opportunity. What can we do to accomplish this? We begin by injecting bold, fresh, and driven New Age politicians with the vision of an ever-changing world. We have such a person joining Jill tonight in the Progressive Talk Zone. In one Gregory Karr for Congress, progressive Democrat, running to unseat Joe Wilson, longtime incumbent in South Carolina's 2nd District. With young warriors like Gregory Karr in South Carolina leading the way, positive change is coming to these depressed southern red states where Gregory Karr's hometown is your hometown too. No matter where you live, progressive change is coming, and Jill sits down to talk with Mr. Gregory Karr right now in the Progressive Talk Zone.
Welcome to the Progressive Talk Zone. I'm Jill Strail, and today we are honored to have with us Gregory Karr, who is running for Congress in his home state of South Carolina in District 2. It's good to have you with us today, Gregory.
Glad to be here, Jill. Thank you.
You have been a tireless working class organizer and activist in your state for the past 15 years. What made you decide to run for office?
Well, it's one of those things that, I'm sure many of us have, many working people have thought about running for office, but haven't done. So for my part, I first started thinking and talking about running for Congress around about 2010. But every couple of years, as the opportunity came around again, for one reason or another, I convinced myself that it wasn't the time. And I think that has a lot to do with just sort of imposter syndrome and inferiority complex that we as working people feel, because we spend our whole lives at every station basically being conditioned to subservience, whether it's growing up with children under the dictatorship of parents, or going to school under the dictatorship of teachers and school administrators, to going into the workforce and existing under the dictatorship of our bosses. So we're used to being relegated to subservience, and it's very hard to break out of that.
Who are you running against? You have a message for that Joe Wilson guy, don't you? Yeah.
So I'm running against Joe Wilson. He's been the representative for the 2nd Congressional District in South Carolina for about 20 years now. He won in a special election after his predecessor died in 2001. And he's been, notoriously unavailable to his constituents. But beyond that, he's been actively abusive to his own constituents, in that at every turn, he has opposed every little bit of policy that would make working people's lives more sustainable, more stable, and enjoyable. Just take the last 18 to 20 months. Anybody who may have had any doubts about Joe Wilson and his concern for his own constituents' livelihoods, those doubts can go right out the window, because over the course of the pandemic, every little scrap of relief that has come our way has come despite his best efforts. So you look at the child tax credit extensions, you look at the unemployment expansions, you look at the relief checks, even the development and distribution of the vaccines. At every turn, Joe Wilson said, no, you can't have that. And thankfully, he was not in the majority. But we have to recognize Joe Wilson and people like him as clear and present dangers to our basic survival, because that's exactly what they represent. And so we don't have time to wait around for, something better to come along despite them. We have to get them out of office now, because they are threatening our basic livelihoods.
That makes a lot of sense. And he sounds like a real horror show. It's been said that politics is the art of the possible. In your 15 years of representing your constituents, what do you see as the most important initiatives to bring immediate relief to the people, to help them see what is possible for them? What are your most important ones?
Well, I think what people need to see right here and now is that the policies that they have already gotten their heads around and understand are key to their immediate survival. We have to ensure that those policies are enacted as quickly as humanly possible and governmentally possible. Medicare for all. It's a very basic human right that if we need care, if we need health care, we ought to have immediate available, have it immediately available to us, free at the point of service. Because as long as cost and profit are elements in the provision of our healthcare in this country, we cannot treat healthcare as a human right. It's incompatible with profit. So we have to recognize that healthcare is a human right and pass a single-payer healthcare system. When it comes to college, we recognized over a century ago that primary and secondary education are net social benefits to a society to have educated children. By that same token, we have to recognize that it's a net social benefit to have educated adults, so that cost is never a barrier to somebody getting the higher education that they seek. We can rattle off any number of policies. Housing as a human right. Anything that people need to survive and thrive in this, the most wealthiest society in the history of in human history. We cannot bar the people from having it simply because of monetary means. It's unforgivable.
One of your signature proposals is a workers' bill of rights, as set forth by FDR during the days of the New Deal. Can you talk about what those rights should be?
Yeah, and I do encourage people to check out the website. It came up on the screen there a minute ago, I believe, but it's www.karrforcongress.com, and that's Karr. You can read the list that I have outlined on there.
Okay.
But basically, about 80 years ago, FDR outlined what he called a second Bill of Rights, interchangeably Second Bill of Rights and Economic Bill of Rights. And basically what he was outlining was that we have the original Bill of Rights, which acknowledged inalienable human rights, but they were never sufficient. And especially as industry advanced and technology advanced, what FDR was saying is that certain other rights have become self-evident as inalienable to the people of this country, and so technology has continued to advance, and he never even was able to advance successfully his second Bill of Rights, and that's been lost to history. But we have an opportunity now to make up ground that we've lost over the last 80 years and go further in the provision of basic rights such as healthcare, education, housing, access to communication, whether it be internet or telephonic. These are all things that are indispensable when it comes to fully participating in modern society. And we cannot have multiple classes of people, some of whom get to participate in society fully and some who don't. So we have to recognize things that, as a society, we're not used to discussing as rights as what they are. Education is a right, healthcare is a right, housing is a right, communication is a right, travel is a right. It's self-evident, and we have to begin speaking of it in those terms, because until we do, there's not going to be the political will that we require to write the legislation that satisfies those rights.
Well, now unions will play a big part in making it possible for the people to reclaim their dignity in a secure economy in these times ahead. And you just received endorsement from a major union in your state. Does that represent widespread support from the working class there? The union support, their endorsement?
We're working on getting more endorsements from unions both locally and nationally. This has been our first official endorsement. I would say stay tuned for more to come. But there aren't any others that I can speak on right now. But yes,
but that was huge. That was huge.
Yeah. So the iron workers in South Carolina, 846. They have formally endorsed our campaign because they understand that we are standing up boldly and unapologetically for working people's rights. For far too long, not just in South Carolina, but throughout the country, we have seen so-called progressive candidates be willing to bargain and compromise when it comes to the details. Sometimes what they see as minor details of what's going to improve the lot in life for working people. But what I'm saying is I'm not going to compromise on the uncompromisable. When we're talking about workers' rights, a right cannot be compromised on because otherwise it's a privilege. So I'm not willing to make excuses for why we can't do everything that needs to be done.
Well, you also want to introduce legislation for a minimum wage of $20 an hour, which is awesome. Right. So the working class will regain its dignity with guaranteed federal mandate and with the federal jobs guarantee. Is that part of what you're fighting for also?
Yes, that's under the Working Bill of Rights.
Well, now, as Congressman for District 2, you will also fight to get teachers a guaranteed salary of $60,000 a year. I guess the teachers union is excited about that. What do they think about that?
I would imagine so. Like I say, there's not any other specific union support that I can speak to right now. But teachers understand that they're being overworked and underpaid, and you're rest assured they understand that I'm fighting with them.
That's
and we'll
awesome.
continue to do so.
Well, would you say, is it fair to say that society punishes the poor for not being rich?
Absolutely. Lyndon Johnson talked about the war on poverty. What we've seen more so is the war on the poor. I grew up in a poor working class family in the low country of South Carolina, and it was just abundantly clear to me as I grew up that when it comes to being poor in our wealthy society, you really are seen with disdain and treated
Mhm.
accordingly, particularly when you're in a position like I was in, living on the margins of
Mhm.
wealth, where our neighbors and the people I went to school with were far better off than my family was, and there was a certain scorn and disrespect that comes with engaging in prosperous society when you're anything but. And so we have to make sure that we're waging a war on poverty and ensuring that in the wealthiest nation in the history in human history, it is impossible to fall behind, and fall below a livable threshold. But instead, like I say, we fight a war on the poor. We make their lives as difficult as possible under the absurd premise that if we just treat them badly enough, they'll take a notion to do better for themselves without regard for what truly makes people destitute. It's social policy that makes people poor, not their own laziness or ineptitude.
Would you say that early education contributes to a lot of that?
Of course. Of course, we need universal early childhood education. We need to make sure that at every stage of life, from infancy to infancy to death, that we are nurturing ourselves and each other in our continuous development. Humans are learning creatures. We never stop learning, but we reach a ceiling in our certain current social constructs, at which we're no longer permitted to learn and learn freely and learn enthusiastically. We reach a ceiling where we're expected to have learned enough and be on our own. But we live in a social society, and we need to nurture our social, educational, and our social and educational development at every stage of life.
Would you say that prenatal nutrition, starting at the earliest, is that part of healthcare, is important and key to that?
Yeah, it's one of those self-evident things that anybody with any sort of a moral compass and basic understanding of how humans operate would understand that nutrition is key to learning and just general function. Anybody who's ever gone without a meal or multiple meals knows that you don't function quite the same. And so to think that it's not true, just as true for others as it is for you, and pretend that that we don't need policy to ensure that children and adults don't go hungry. It's just absurd.
Well, one of the books that you like, and I've read it too and adore it, is The Nickel and Dimed, describing the plight of the working class who serve us all by working the lowest paying jobs, doing the hardest jobs that, in terms of mental, emotional, and physical deterioration to the body, if nothing else, very repetitive.
You've cut out, Jill.
Sometime, let's see. There she's rebooting her. Greg, quickly while she's rebooting, where can people find your website to donate, sir?
Yeah, so if you go to the website, karrforcongress.com, and that's Karr, Karr. Yep, that right there. There's an orange donate button right there at the top that you can click on.
Right.
So please give what you can. It's what's going to make it possible for us to build the infrastructure that we need to finally take down Joe Wilson.
Right. Well, we're gonna be getting to work on that. And I think Jill's back. Are you back with us, Jill? I don't know if she's back with me or not. But
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
yes, we can hear you, Jill. Go ahead. We're glad
Okay, good.
you just got knocked off for a minute there.
I
Proceed
did.
on. Okay. We were just
Well,
letting everyone
I
know
just
we were just letting everyone know where they can contact Gregory for
Can donate.
donation.
And what is it? Did you want 20? How much is your median amount? I know Bernie was talking $27.
Yeah, everything is welcome. Do what you can, whether it's $5, $10,
Oh,
$27, $50.
that's awesome.
Just do what you can. It's all going to add up. But we have to throw our lot in with each other, because nobody's going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves.
Right.
And so when we have opportunities to fund campaigns that are willing to stand up unapologetically for working people, then we have to make sure that we're supporting each other in those efforts. We're not going to be able to do that. You're not taking any. Not taking any corporate PAC money. Yeah.
Right. I was going to ask you, you're not doing any of that. You don't want any huge sponsorships from blood deep pockets, because that doesn't really. It's not
conducive to where my allegiances lie. But you were asking about Nickel and Dimed, Aaron Reich's book.
Yes.
And that is it's a very moving expose on just what it means to be a member of the working poor. You're working full-time jobs, sometimes 2 or even more full-time jobs, and you're still just barely scraping by, because the whole construct is designed to extract maximum productivity from each individual worker at the lowest possible wage. So we really truly are living under a system of constant abuse. We're living and working under a system of constant abuse, and we need to recognize it as that, because when you're the victim of abuse, you need to call out your abusers' names. You need to fight them relentlessly. But if we don't recognize that abuse is what it is, it's hard to fight it in the necessary ways.
One thing I think is interesting too is that when you were talking about not being rich, and the rich people look down on the poor, and they look down on the poor as being parasites or parasitical to the body politic, when indeed it is the rich who seem to be parasitic on us. It seems like they have their foot on our neck. So it's sort of like war is peace, the oxymoron, or the turning it all upside down is that they make the riches off the backs of the people who feel that they don't know what's possible. And what I'm hearing from you is that you have absolute solid stuff to make that possible for these people. And
it's not about me making it possible or saving anybody, because if we're being honest, saviors and heroes don't exist, and we need to stop waiting for them to come around, because they're never going to come. What we need to recognize is that we're only going to see any change for the better for our working and living lives if we're standing together and demanding it without apology and without hesitation. If you just look for the next person who's going to come along and be your political savior, you're going to be waiting forever, and you're never going to get what you need. But when you throw your lot in with everybody struggling just as you are, and demand better as a whole, as a collective, that's when change happens. And that's what I aim to demonstrate in my own district, is that when working people stand together and fight in solidarity, then you start to see the fruits of that. But I'm not willing to present myself dishonestly as some sort of a political savior, because I'm absolutely not. And like I say, that does not exist. So I think we need to disabuse ourselves of that notion very quickly, and focus on doing the collective work that needs to be done to improve our lives.
Yes, absolutely, Greg. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for coming on the Progressive Talk Zone, Jill and myself tonight. You've got a message for Joe Wilson, and we would like an opportunity to play that message.
Absolutely, please. I'm Gregory Karr, and I approve this message. Joe, for over 20 years, you've sold out the hardworking people of this state to large corporations and denied South Carolinians the most basic standards of living. You have perpetuated the racist politics of people like Ben Tillman and allowed the lynchers' politics to reign supreme in our state. For over 2 decades, Joe, you have shown us just how little our lives matter to you. This past year when COVID-19 hit and we needed quick, accurate testing throughout our state, you said no. As we remained under lockdown and essential workers and business owners were desperate for relief, you said no. As we faced losing our homes to banks and landlords, and we needed to know that we would not be evicted during the worst public health crisis in generations, you said no. When vaccines were finally developed to fight the virus, and we needed quick distribution and efficient access to these vaccines, you said no. Time and time again, Joe, you have said no. Time and time again, Joe, you have failed us. I'm Gregory Karr, and I'm running for Congress because it's high time that somebody said yes to the people of South Carolina and said firmly no to Joe Wilson.
Gregory Karr, thank you so much for being with us here today on the Progressive Talk Zone. We're so glad to have you, and I hope you'll come back again. I'm Jill Strail.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Greg, and one party, let me ask you, sir. I'm from North Carolina. I'm a Carolina boy. I'm from the Piedmont. I'm from the eastern part of North Carolina. If I'm not mistaken, you're from that Piedmont region.
No, I'm from the Aiken area near Augusta. Yeah,
near Augusta. Okay, South Carolina. Joe Wilson's pretty. How long has he been in office there? He's pretty much
about 2 decades.
2 decades. So we got some work to do, folks. There's no pulling no punches here, and we need for you to get behind Gregory. We're going to be posting his information where you can donate, and we're also going to be needing all kinds of help in getting for South Carolina to begin to say yes to positive progressive change, and it's Gregory Karr that we need to say yes to. We want to thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peace out, y'all.